Hi, and welcome to another Espria podcast. I'm Brian Sibley, Virtual CTO, and today I've got with me Jon Hope from Sophos.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Jon Hope. I'm Senior Technology Evangelist at Sophos.
And today what we're going to talk about is the key findings from the Sophos 2025 State of Ransomware report. It's a really interesting report, but probably worth giving us an overview first, Jon, on what it's about.
Absolutely, yeah. So the State of Ransomware report is a staple in the Sophos calendar now. We're on our 6th iteration. It's worth mentioning straight away that the State of Ransomware report, although it's commissioned by Sophos, we don't actually influence who participates. So they're randomly selected IT managers, budget holders, decision makers from all across the world. And we ask them about their experiences of cybersecurity and cybercrime to get a better feel for the threat landscape. And it offers a really interesting insight. And of course, now we're 6 years in, we can see some really interesting trends.
So, really good report. I mean, we've used it for a number of years at Espria as well. It's always full of useful information, and it's really interesting to see the stats. And I think probably one of the key points that we've picked up is that still got 70% of attacks are resulting in data being encrypted. Really interesting, and 26% of those are encryption-led attacks that also involve data theft. It's a scary statistic, really.
It is, and it's particularly bad in the UK, actually. So the 70% of attacks involving successful encryption of data is actually specific to the UK. So worldwide, it's 50%. And this is somewhere where the UK is actually lagging behind. And what it indicates, I should emphasize that most of the participants, if not all of them, are not Sophos customers. It shows that existing cybersecurity solutions in many cases are not really doing what they're supposed to be doing. If we see data being encrypted, then a lot of things have gone wrong before we get to that point. So it really does show that not all cybersecurity solutions are really effective at what they should be doing.
Yeah, a lot going on beforehand, and probably most of these attacks, data's been exfiltrated before the encryption, and obviously that often the first sign that people know they've had an attack is when they get data ransomware messages.
Exactly, that's an attack vector that I'm watching with interest. We have seen an increase in attacks that simply don't involve any encryption. It's simply data theft attacks. And we're seeing an increase in sort of dual attacks where we see encryption of data and also the exfiltration of data as well. And this is a deliberate ploy by the cyber criminals, because if organizations have a good backup and some other method of recovering, they're going to be much less inclined to pay the ransom demands. So what we see is cyber criminals stealing data in advance for two reasons. One is that the data itself has inherent value and can be sold. But secondly, and more profitably from the cyber criminals' perspective, that can be used to hold the victim organization to ransom. Essentially, if they refuse to pay, then the threat is that they will publicize that data and ruin the victim's organizational representation, ruin the victim's reputation.
Absolutely. So, say we've been doing it for a few years now. So, what's the trend seeing from last year to this year? Is it we're going down? We're going up? How are things looking?
So there's a few changes that are very interesting. The overall average cost of ransomware is actually coming down. The levels of encryption are starting to go back up again. One of the interesting trends that I'm looking at is the fact that we're seeing an increase in victim organizations actually paying the ransom. Simultaneously, also a reduction in organizations using backups. And that surprises me a lot, because in 2025, I would like to think everybody knows that they should have a good backup policy. We're advocates of at least a 3-2-1 process of having backups distributed, immutable, and yet we still see organizations not using backups successfully. The fact that organizations are showing an increased propensity to pay the ransom is also quite concerning, because the unfortunate reality is that we continue to perpetuate the problem by paying the cyber criminals.
It's driving the business model works.
It is driving people into the industry. And if we could wave a magic wand and stop ransom payments straight away, then this approach would simply die out.
Yeah.
It's very easy for me to say. It's not my factory full of machines that aren't working because the data has been encrypted, or I'm not in a hospital where patients can't be treated because the doctors can't access medical records. But in an ideal world, we should really try to avoid paying the cyber criminals, because it does perpetuate the problem.
I think the other thing we noticed was the recovery time now reducing. What do you think the key things are that are leading to that?
I would like to think that it's because organizations have a better process in place for recovery. The industry at large has talked a lot about recovery plans, getting a strategy in place to make sure, for one, that your data's backed up and you have a process of getting back online. The recovery times vary quite dramatically based on organization size. Kind of inherently bigger organizations, they're more complex, they will have more data. It will take longer to do a backup and a recovery process. But the reduction in time is definitely a good thing. Obviously, a significant part of the cost of any ransomware incident is the time it takes to get back up to normal operation.
So the real world implications of these stats, what are they really saying to us? I suppose it's getting the tools in place initially to get those alerts and see what's happening, I suppose.
Absolutely. I'm sure in future episodes we're going to look in more detail about how the attack chain actually works and how it looks, but there are always warning signs before we get to the data being encrypted. And relying on technology alone to detect these attacks is not a realistic approach. The attacks are sophisticated, they outwit technology, and it really is a combination, which I know we'll explore in more detail, a combination of looking at telemetry and having good technology in place. That's the first thing. And then the other key takeaway really is to have that plan in place so you understand exactly how to get an organization back on as quickly as possible.
I think the recovery plan is key, and making sure that all business, not just an IT challenge. I think that covers it. But it's interesting stats. There's some good news there and some bad, but it looks like we're heading in the right direction, but we still need to be getting those tools in place, practicing those recovery plans. Good. So thanks again for your time, John.
My pleasure. No problem at all.
And we'll see you soon.